Once upon a time, in an African town called Amaka, in Imo State, Nigeria, there lived a man named Chekube. He was a man of ambition, though his dreams were not for himself, but for his unborn daughters. Chekube had once been a bright young boy with aspirations of becoming an engineer, but fate had other plans. His father had died suddenly, leaving behind Chekube, his mother, and his younger brother, Daniel. As the eldest son, Chekube had to make a choice: continue his education or ensure that Daniel, the brighter of the two, finished his studies. He chose the latter. He dropped out of school, working tirelessly in construction sites, loading trucks and doing whatever odd jobs he could find to put his brother through medical school. And so Daniel went. Years passed, filled with back-breaking labor for Chekube and relentless studying for Daniel. Chekube worked the land, supplemented by odd jobs, enduring the scorching sun and the biting rains, all with one purpose: to ensure his brother's success. He denied himself comforts, pleasures, and even necessities, channeling every spare kobo towards Daniel's education. Finally, the day arrived. Daniel returned. A qualified doctor, his eyes shining with intelligence and gratitude. He embraced Chekube, his voice choked with emotion.
You did it, brother. You made this possible. I owe you everything.
Chekube simply smiled, a rare and precious sight.
You owe me nothing, Daniel. Just serve our people with honesty and compassion.
When Daniel finally graduated as a doctor, he was full of gratitude. One evening, as they sat under the cool shade of a mango tree, Daniel shared a piece of information he had learned during his medical training.
You know, Chekube,
he began cautiously.
There are ways a parent can influence the gender of their child naturally before conception. It's not a guarantee, of course, but there are certain dietary and lifestyle adjustments that can increase the odds of having a boy or a girl.
Chekube's eyes widened.
You mean you can choose?
Daniel explained the science, carefully emphasizing that it wasn't foolproof. He spoke of pH levels, mineral imbalances, and the subtle dance of hormones. But Chekube only heard one thing: choice. The power to influence the gender of his unborn child. Oh God, I have a bad feeling about this. Okay, let's continue. A seed was planted in Chekube's mind that day. A seed that would soon blossom into an all-consuming obsession. I said it. While men in Mwaka prayed for male children so that they could inherit more land properties and bear their names as their customs demand, Chekube had always admired women, not just their beauty, but their strength, their resilience, their ability to nurture and build. But he was very poor and had watched many families make wealth from their daughters by collecting huge bride prices from their suitors. He saw having many female children as a way for him to become rich and enjoy his old age. Oh my God. He married Amaka, a quiet and obedient woman who had no say in the direction her life took, with careful planning and strategic timing. Just as Daniel had advised, Amaka bore him daughter after daughter, 9 in total. His plan had worked almost perfectly, except for one tiny mistake. One of the daughters had been born with a twin brother, Chijioke. Chekube had never wanted a son. He saw no monetary value in boys, but he had no choice. He had to keep the boy. Years passed, and Chekube's 9 daughters grew into beautiful young women. He always called them
my investment
because he saw them as assets, each one destined to bring in wealth through her bride price. His entire life's work had been dedicated to raising them, feeding them, clothing them, and ensuring they were well trained in homekeeping. But then came the problem he hadn't anticipated. One by one, his daughters brought home suitors, young men who professed their undying love and devotion. But Chekube had no interest in love stories. He had spent years building his wealth through these daughters, and he was not about to throw that away for a man who could only afford a goat and a few kegs of palm wine.
No daughter of mine will marry a man who cannot afford her worth. Go and write romance novel and leave my daughter alone. Even in the Bible, there is Acts of Apostles before romance.
He bellowed each time one of his daughters introduced a suitor with an unimpressive financial standing. Years passed, and the stories remained the same. His daughters, like wilting roses, started getting old and losing their appeal, but Chekube remained adamant. He would rather have them working with and for him than give them to a poor man that can't pay the complete bride price. This man just sees his daughters as money-making machines. This is so sad. Ginika, his third daughter, had managed to bring home a man who could meet the extravagant bride price. Richard was a wealthy businessman with political connections. He came with bags of money, luxurious fabrics, and crates of the finest wine. Chekube didn't think twice. The transaction, because that was exactly what it was finalized in no time. Ginika was sent off to her new husband's house, and Chekube counted his profits with satisfaction. But happiness was not waiting for Ginika on the other side of marriage. Richard was a monster in disguise, the very sorry version of a man, and perfect example of a wife batterer. The very first night after their wedding, he had slapped her for asking why he came home late. The second time, he had dragged her by her hair. Okay, breathe. He had dragged her by her hair and flung her against the wall because she did not serve his food quickly enough. By the third time, she had stopped crying because crying changed nothing.
Every time I give you an instruction, you will say, I think. How will you be thinking? Which head do you want to think with? After I spent so much money paying for your head?
Richard would scream while pummeling Ginika's face. He was right. Bride price in most African countries is called paying for the bride's head. And now that it was too expensive, his frustration, though unjustified, is understandable. A slave shouldn't think of herself as a partner. When Ginika gathered the courage to run back home, battered and broken, Chekube did not even let her into the house.
What do you mean you are leaving your husband?
He scoffed.
Do you know how much he paid for your head? Do you think I can refund that kind of money? Go back to your husband's house and learn how to be an obedient wife. It's like you learn nothing from your mother. Idiot.
Her mother had not said a word. She had merely stood at the corner of the house, wringing her hands, eyes filled with silent pain. Oh my God, my heart is breaking for this woman. Ginika had no choice. She went back, and the beatings continued. Meanwhile, Chioma, Chekube's seventh daughter, had no intentions of following in her sister's footsteps. She was a career-driven woman with dreams bigger than the town of Umuaka could contain. She had worked hard to become a financial analyst, a job that took her to Lagos, where she met Kelechi, a kind, intelligent man who loved her deeply. When Kelechi asked for her hand in marriage, Chioma was thrilled, but then came the hurdle. Her father demanded an outrageous bride price. It was the same old story.
A man must pay for his wife like she was property to be acquired.
Chioma, however, refused. I am not a commodity to be priced, she told Kelechi firmly. If your family values me only by how much you can pay, then they do not deserve me. Her refusal sent shockwaves through the community. Oh, I love this. The elders whispered that she was disrespectful. The women in the market gossiped that she had been corrupted by modern ideas. The men laughed, saying no woman would ever be married without a proper bride price. Even her father, Chekube, was furious.
You have disgraced me, Chioma. Do you think you are better than your sisters? Do you think you are too good for tradition?
He fumed. But Chioma stood her ground. She loved Kelechi, but she would not be bought. If that meant never getting married, so be it. The controversy spread beyond their household, igniting heated debates in the town and on social media. Facebook was flooded with posts about Chioma's rebellion, with men and women choosing sides. Bride price is our tradition. It must be respected. One comment read, "No woman should be sold like a goat." Another countered,
"Modern women have no respect for culture."
One man ranted, "Culture should evolve. Women are not property." A woman argued. As the online war raged, so did the tension in Chekube's home. His investments, his daughters, were slipping through his fingers. His grip on their futures was weakening. His grand plan was unraveling before his eyes. That same month, 3 of his daughters joined joined the rebellion. They got themselves pregnant and moved into the houses of the men. Right before his eyes, Chekube saw himself losing his overpriced investments. Then one fateful night, the call came. Ginika was in the hospital. Richard had beaten her so badly that she had fallen unconscious. The doctors were not sure if she would survive. Chekube, for the first time in his life, felt fear, not for his wealth, not for his reputation, but for his daughter. His investment was lying on a hospital bed, fighting for her life. And suddenly, money didn't seem so important anymore. It was too late to take back the years of neglect, too late to undo the choices that had led them here. But perhaps, just perhaps, it was not too late to change. As dawn broke over Umwaka, a broken man sat by his daughter's bedside, holding her bruised hand, whispering apologies she might never wake up to hear. And somewhere in Lagos, Chioma, free from the chains of tradition, smiled at the man she loved, ready to build a future based on love, not transactions. For the first time, the weight of outdated customs began to crumble, and the door of a new era shone through. Chekube understood that marriage is more a partnership between two families than it is a business transaction where the girl is the slave and her suitor is the slave master. Bride price is what it is called in Africa, paying for the bride's head. It's clear that these ancient customs have evolved into complex social phenomena. While dowries have largely fallen out of favor in modern societies due to their potential for exploitation, bride prices remain a contentious issue in many African cultures. However, it's time to rethink this tradition. By paying a bride price, we inadvertently commodify love and relationships, reducing them to transactions rather than unions built on mutual respect and trust. Imagine if we redirected these resources toward empowering women through education and economic independence instead. Not only would this foster healthier relationships, but it would also unlock the full potential of women in our communities. So, let's shift our focus from paying for a partner to building partnerships that value equality, love, and mutual growth. By doing so, we can create a brighter future where every marriage is a celebration of love and respect, not a financial transaction. Oof, this story was so sad. Women are not for sale.